Hare Krishna. So today we are on the 4th day of our 11-day series, how to deal with crisis situation like a COVID crisis situation through the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. And we are on the second part of our session series, which is Bhagavad Gita a mythology? So yesterday, Prabhuji began with this particular session and he elaborated many important points regarding how people can perceive these Vedas or these ancient wisdom texts. Today, Prabhuji are going to address some of the frequently asked questions or fundamentally asked questions regarding the Vedas, like or the mythology subjects, like how to understand or who claim this particular area as the mythology. It's very important that a particular section of people believe that, oh, it was spoken 5,000 years ago. Is it still relevant? Whereas many of the celebrities feel that no, it's the manual of life. In the Gita, Lord Krishna has told how we should live the life. What are the ways we can have a balance in our duties, karma, and many other aspects which are still very, very relevant. So without a much ado, I welcome our speaker, His Grace Madan Sundar Das ji, for today's session, where we're going to have second part of discussion on is Bhagavad Gita mythology? I believe some of your doubts have already clarified, but if you have some doubts, or maybe your friends or family members are having any other doubt related to the Bhagavad Gita, then you should be stick to this particular session. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible now? All right.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mother Dipasha, and thanks to everyone for joining us for another evening on the subject of is Bhagavad Gita a mythology? So we'll begin our discussion. Just prior to that, allow for prayers and we'll start our discussion. Om Jnanathimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, starting with our topic, is Bhagavad Gita a mythology? Part 2. So yesterday, we'll just do a quick recap. Before we answer the question, is it a mythology or not, we began our discussion from a more fundamental topic. And that was that every living entity is searching for something. And that something is nothing other than happiness. And this search for happiness is not only common between the humans, is also common between humans and animals. So yesterday, like that, we have discussed about 4 kinds of commonalities between the humans and animals. So before we move ahead, we'll have a quick poll where we'll just see if you kind of remember what were those 4 commonalities and the acronym for it. So I'll request our devotee if we have it. So just to see how much you remember. So it's an acronym. We had given an acronym yesterday for this, and that is what we have asked you to fill it out here, if that can happen quickly. So maybe another 10-15 seconds, and then we can close this thing. So along with the simultaneously, we saw this 4 similarities or commonalities between humans and animals. Along with that, we also saw the difference. We raised a question, is there a difference between human and animal? And we also gave an acronym for it, which was A, B, C, D, where A stood for ability to inquire, B refers to bliss, higher levels of bliss. Oh, great. I'm happy to see many of you remember this. Thank you very much. And C was making the right choices, and D refers to determination to make the right kind of inquiry. The inquiry should not be about the seed, about the thing that we just discussed, about the commonality between humans and animal, but the inquiry must be about how to access the higher levels of happiness. And there are 4 levels of happiness that we had discussed yesterday, like on the physical level, emotional level, intellectual level, and the spiritual level of happiness. So discussing along with this, humans versus animals, after describing about this 4 levels of happiness, we had talked about that the technological advancement or the scientific advancement have only improved the facility to enjoy the 4 basic needs, that is a seed, but have not given a facility or any opportunity to access the higher levels of happiness, and primarily has not done anything to make us free from suffering. Are we really suffering? So we had discussed about a common problem or a real problem. Problem to be a real, it has to fulfill 3 conditions, and that was C and N. C for common to all, and nobody wants it. And the last N, nobody can avoid it. And like that, we had discussed about 7 problems which Lord Shri Krishna, through the text of Bhagavad Gita, identifies, that is birth, death, old age, and disease, and 3 kinds of miseries or kaleshas, like Adhyatmika, Adhibhautik, and Adhidaivika klesha. When Lord Shri Krishna identifies these 7 kinds of problems, he also gives us a solution to deal with it. And the solution to overcome this real life problems is simple. And the solution is to revive one's lost or forgotten relationship with the Supreme Lord. And to help you understand this concept, I had given an example of a lost son of Ambani, who you found on the, on the traffic light begging for some money. And we had discussed this analogy yesterday. So happiness is a byproduct of love. Despite having all the luxuries and the comforts at our end, we are not yet satisfied. Why? Because we are disconnected from our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So if you want to experience satisfaction, happiness, and love in our life, that is only possible when we reconnect ourselves with the Supreme Father. Does Supreme Father exist? That we have already established in the very first topic, is God in control. And now through this topic, we are talking about who can teach us, who can tell us about who is our Supreme Father. And therefore we raise the question, are the Vedic text or Bhagavad Gita a mythology? And for that reason, we have been discussing like this. So now the question arises, all right, I agree so far, whatever Bhagavad Gita says is correct. I acknowledge there is a Supreme Father, but is accepting scriptures a blind faith? This is what is taught to us, and we'll in a short while discuss about why accepting scriptures is considered to be a blind faith in today's society. It has a historical context. We'll give that history or narrate that history in a short while. So we had discussed the very first reason yesterday, science versus spirituality. Science is considered to be based on facts, and spirituality is based on faith, blind faith. This is a misnomer or a misunderstanding that we had proved it yesterday. Science and spirituality both have 2 commonalities. One is the faith. Even for science to be functional, it is based on axiomatic truths like imaginary number, third law of thermodynamics, or even the point, which is a non-dimensional entity, but when you draw multiple dots and when you join them, it becomes a line which has a dimension, and so forth. Similarly, in spirituality, there are certain axiomatic truths. I am not the body, but the soul. Lord exists. There is a spiritual world, so forth, many other things. So faith is a foundation for both science and spirituality. And then the process is of theory, experiment, and conclusion. In spirituality, we study texts like Bhagavad Gita, and then we apply the teachings in our life. That is called as the stage of experimentation. And the foremost of it is meditation. And when we apply or practice meditation, and then when we get the results, then it proves the theory that we have studied through the text like Bhagavad Gita. So in the field of spirituality, we are the subject and we are the object of experimentation. Whereas in the case of science, we don't do experimentation on ourselves, we do experimentation in a lab on chemicals, on different objects like that. But science and spirituality are aligning with each other and not in conflict. So let's continue on this topic and let's build it up more. Is accepting scriptures a blind faith? We'll give you two more reasons why it is not a blind faith. Second reason is undefeatable Vedic predictions. There are predictions given in the Vedic scriptures that with time have come out to be true. To give an example, the birth of Chanakya, Jesus Christ, or even Prophet Muhammad. About Chanakya Pandit, Srimad Bhagavatam 12th canto describes, and about Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad, Bhavishya Puran, and the references given on the screen, describes about their appearance. Not only that, the appearance of Lord Buddha, King Ashok, and even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many other great personalities, their appearance have been foretold in the scriptures. And apart from that, many things have been foretold. If you're interested to know about what all has been told about this current day and time, you can refer to the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which talks about how the civilization would be in today's time. How would be the relationship between the parents and the child, the husband and wife? What kind of economical, what kind of a social condition would be there of the society? And what kind of lifestyle, age, health, everything is described in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. If you're interested, you can read it out. And I'm pretty sure you'll find it that all has come true and many things have to come true with time. So second thing, undefeatable Vedic truth. Let's go to the third point. Is accepting scriptures a blind faith? Well, as long as we talked about undefeatable Vedic predictions, similarly, there are undefeatable Vedic truths, which means Vedic science that with time, science have learned about it or have come to conclude with it. Just like Vedas state plants have life, earlier it was not believed. Earlier they didn't had an idea about it. They thought plants don't have life. It was proved later by a scientist by the name of Jagdish Chandra Bose. Similarly, description of human embryology, if you're interested, it is even given in Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto. Otherwise, there is a dedicated text, scripture, which talks about the 9 months from the time of the conception. What happens at the time of conception? What happens right after conception? And from day 1 up to the 9th month, how does different limbs in the body of the child takes shape? Everything is described in detail, which the modern scientists were only able to find out or understand about it several decades before and not before that, because they didn't have the machines. They didn't have the facility of ultrasound and whatnot. And they just found out now. And whatever they are able to conclude or find out matches entirely with what is given in Vedic scriptures. Yet they don't have that extent of details which the Vedic scripture gives about the science of embryology. And not only this, we all are aware of Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, Vastu Shastra, astronomy, astrology, metallurgy. Many subject matters are given from the Vedas, which are, people have used it all this while, but for a short span of time, people have turned their eyes blind to it, I would say, for the last 150 years. But now, once again, people are turning back to it. Yoga, there is an International Yoga Day at the level of United Nations, where all over the world on this particular day in a year, everyone comes and performs yoga. Where does the knowledge of yoga is given? One place is Bhagavad Gita, second is Patanjali Yoga Sutras, isn't it? How can it be a mythology? Vedas state cow dung is pure. And in 1940, the scientists found out its antiseptic qualities. So is accepting scriptures a blind faith? No, not at all. It's not a blind faith. Why we still consider it as a blind faith, I will be speaking about it in a short while. So here in this subject matter, we discussed 3 points: science versus spirituality, undefeatable Vedic truths, and Vedic predictions. Let's go to the second part of our today's discussion, is the frequently asked questions. And in today's presentation, I'm going to cover 5 FAQs, the 5 commonly asked questions. And in case there are certain questions which are still pending, which have not been answered, then we will take it during the question answer. So let's begin with very first FAQ. And that is, what are the Vedas? Now we'll talk about Bhagavad Gita in a short while, because Bhagavad Gita is part of Vedas. So I'm just taking an opportunity to cover the subject of Vedas here. So let me help you understand what are Vedas with a simple analogy. To begin with, we as a living entity inhabit a huge universe, isn't it? This is a model given to us by NASA. Given to us means this is what is published by NASA according to their calculations. If you look closely, you will find a small dot on the left side of the screen, above which it is written Earth. And if you look closely, probably too closely, then you might find India on the map. And if you further zoom in, if you have that ability, then you might find a Rashtra, Maharashtra within the Rashtra of India, that is Maharashtra. And if you're able to further zoom in, you might find a city of Pune, where some of us are sitting. And if you further zoom in, you'll find the area where we are and the society and a small apartment we are. The point is, if you look at the whole universe, we are so infinitesimal, so insignificant is our situation and position in this universe alone. So question is, how such an insignificant, infinitesimal living entity know about the existence of God, who is outside and beyond the creation itself? And not only that, who is the creator and maintainer of many such universes and beyond this gigantic manifestation. So all methods of acquiring knowledge can be broadly classified into 2 categories. We have discussed that before. One is called inductive, second called as deductive. Inductive means by own research. And deductive means just like a child asking mother, who is my father? Which means to learn the truth by hearing from bona fide sources. So to give an example, imagine there is an ant in your room, and if the ant, a tiny creature ant, wants to know what's happening in Delhi, forget about Delhi, you're in Pune, what's happening in Bombay, forget about Bombay, what's happening in the another society. Do you think for a tiny ant it is possible to figure out on its own? Let's go from one city to another city, one country to another country. It becomes literally impossible. It's just not possible. Why? Why? The fact is because ant is too small and has a limited ability to learn on its own. Similarly, we are not much greater than an ant in context of this universe. We cannot find out about the Lord through our research or efforts based on Anuman and Pratyaksha Praman. Imagine if the ant says, unless I see America, I will not believe. Unless I see Bombay, I will not believe. Is it possible? Not possible. So Pratyaksha and Anuman is just not possible. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, the process of acquiring knowledge, Krishna reveals in Bhagavad Gita itself. If you want to know the absolute truth, the way to understand the absolute truth is 4th chapter, 34th verse. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. Which means, Krishna tells Arjuna, just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. The one who has seen the absolute truth can tell you about the absolute truth. One who has learned the Vedic science from another authority can tell you about the Vedic science. So we have to learn about the Lord from descending process. So question comes now, who is this authority from whom we can learn about the existence of the Lord and the nature of the Lord. And that authority is none other than the Vedas. That's the whole point, which I had said before also. Vedas are like the mother who helps us understand or know who is our father. But the question comes, aren't Vedas written by a man? Man who has 4 defects? Anyone remembers the 4 defects? The acronym? If you remember the acronym, you can type in. What was the acronym for the 4 defects? And that is MISC. M-I-S-C. So aren't Vedas written by man? If it is written by man, then it must have 4 defects. Well, the matter of fact is, no, that's not the case. Vedas are not written by man. The Vedas are apurusha, which means they are not man-made. So the question arises, then what is the origin of Vedas if it is not man-made? And the origin of Vedas is Janmadiyasya yataha Anvayad itarascharteshu bhikna swarat tene brahma hide adi kavye muhyanti yat surya. The Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, verse number 1, where it is revealed, the Lord Shri Krishna had revealed the knowledge of Vedic science into the heart of Brahma. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavya. And like that, Brahma received this wisdom of Vedic science, and then Brahma gave that knowledge to Narada Muni, his son, Narad to his disciple Vyasa, Vyasa to his son Sukdev, Sukdev to Parishit Maharaj. In that assembly was Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya, and the sages of Naimisharanya distributed further down the line. And like that, in Guru Parampara, starting from Krishna down up to today, in disciplic succession, the message of Lord Shri Krishna has been preserved and presented as it is. So how do we receive them? As I just told you, in a parampara system. Srimad Bhagavatam predicts about people in Kali Yuga. Until Dwapar Yuga, people would hear and they would remember. But in Kali Yuga, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Prayena alpa ayushya sabhya kalavasmin yuge chanaha mandas mandamat bhagya hi upadrutaha. So these are the symptoms of the person in Kali Yuga. Mandaha means lazy. You might say lazy looks like people are hyperactive today. The word lazy here refers to spiritually lazy. They would have very less interest in spiritual subject matter. If you agree yes, say yes. If you think no, say no. Let's have some interactions. Second thing Srimad Bhagavatam describes about the candidate of Kali Yuga is Sumanda Matayo, misguided. He does not know what he wants in his life. He doesn't know what is his purpose of his life. He thinks earning money is the goal of my life, and he keeps running after it, but forgets in the journey that he's supposed to live his life. Manda Bhagya, unlucky. So much hard work, so much effort he has to put in, still happiness evades him. He never or she never becomes happy. And Upadrutaha, quarrelsome, or you can say disturbed. So disturbed, the person fails to sleep in the night also. So many people have to take sleeping pills, whatnot. Have you seen people like this in Kali Yuga? Yes or no? What our audience is saying? Yes. Okay. This is again one of the prophecy given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, people in Kali Yuga would have a very less ability to remember. Their memory would be very weak. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva, a literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcribed or wrote down all the scriptures in a written format 5,000 years ago, and he divided the scriptures in the 4 parts: Riga, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Ved. And Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9, chapter verse number 17, Pitaham asya jagato mata dhata pitamaha Vedyam pavitram omkara rik sama yajur evacha. Krishna says, rik sama yajur evacha. Arjun, I am the rig sama yajur. The Vedas represent me. They're not different than I. That's the point. So once again, it proves that Krishna gave this knowledge to Brahma, and through disciplic succession, this knowledge is propagated. So like this, Vyasa divided, and this is the sequence of events that had taken place 5,000 years ago. So one Veda was divided into 4 Vedas, and then Vyasa wrote Itihasas and Puranas like Brahma, Narada Puran, Matsya, Shiva Puran, Brahmanda Puran, many other Puranas are there like this. And then he wrote Mahabharata, and it is Mahabharata which has 18 parvas, and in that 18 parva, there is a parva called Bhishma Parva. And in that Bhishma Parva, right? Yeah, the first 10 days of the war that called as Bhishma Parva. In that Bhishma Parva is Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken right at the beginning of the war of Kurukshetra, is found. So Bhagavad Gita is found in Mahabharata. And then Srila Vyasadeva composed a text by the name of Vedanta Sutra, where he wrote 555 shlokas to sum up everything that is described in the huge, huge scriptures. It is explained that he had written more than 4,250 books at his time. Of course, it was not Vyasadeva was writing, Ganesh was writing and helping him out. 4,250 texts were written, the books were written, of which only 6% books are available to us now. Most of them have been burnt. We know of Takshila, what happened in Takshila University by the Muslim invaders and whatnot. And then finally, to help us understand this Vedanta Sutra, the concise quotes, and Srila Vyasadeva wrote a commentary to it, which is called as Srimad Bhagavatam. So far, we have discussed about 4 FAQs, frequently asked questions. What are the Vedas? Vedas are like mother to us, who help us understand who is our Supreme Father. Second, what is the origin of Vedas? What is the origin of Vedas? Krishna himself revealed the knowledge of Vedas to Vyasadeva, to Brahma, Lord Brahma. And how did we receive it? We received it in a disciplic succession. Krishna to Brahma, Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasadeva. Like that, it has continued in disciplic succession. And what are the divisions of Vedas? We also discussed that. Vedas are divided into 4: Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda, like that. So these are the 4 FAQs, a little awareness about to you, all of you, about what Vedas are. And now come to an interesting subject matter. Are the Vedas mythology? Why scriptures are termed as mythology? What is the reason for it? There are 2 prominent reasons. And now we'll little bit dig into it. The very first reason is to dishonor Vedic science for political purpose. The gentleman that you see on the screen, his name was Max Muller. He's said to be the father of Indologists, and he is the one who coined the term mythology. It was he who termed mythology and prescribed to Vedic science. Let's go back a little bit in the history. I believe all of you know and acknowledge and recognize that one point of time, India was known as Bharatvarsh. Yes or no? Or do I need to explain this? Everyone knows about it? Great. So Bharatvarsh, there had been 3 great Bharat, the history of Bharat, the person Bharat. One, oh, well, why don't we have a poll here? We have a poll here. So please go with the poll. There are 3 prominent Bharat that we know in the history. One is the son of Shakuntala, from whom the Bharat descendant or dynasty in which the Kauravas came. Second was the son of Rishabdev. And third was brother of Lord Ram. By the way, happy Ram Navami. Tomorrow is the appearance day of Lord Ram. So here is my question to all of you. After whose name our country got the name of Bharatvarsha? Now I'm saying our country, precisely Bharatvarsha refers to the whole planet Earth. Because until Dwapara Yuga, there was a single ruler who would rule all over the planet Earth, and the whole planet Earth was called as Bharatvarsh. That's a little different subject. We'll not go into those details, but over here. So according to you, after whose name this land is known as Bharatvarsh? So, okay, good attempt. There are two versions of it. Many believe it is after son of Shakuntala. However, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, it was after the son of Rishabdev. Anyways, I just wanted to see if you have some clue about it or not. So here is my question to all of you. When did Bharatvarsh become India? Isn't it? If you were known as Bharat, then when did Bharat become India? Bharat became India just 100, I would say, 70 years before, 170 years before, or 172 years, you can say. It was in 1848 when Britishers changed the name to India to limit our glorious culture to Indus Valley civilization. What is Indus Valley civilization? As you see on the screen up here, right in the Himalayas, you see a blue line originating from the Himalayas and crossing through the Pakistan, Karachi, going into the Arabian Sea. That blue line is a stream of a river which is called as the Indus River, also known as Sindhu River. Now, the Britishers said that 3,500 years before, or let's say 5,000 years up to 3,500 years, there was a civilization living at the bank of this Indus River, which they called as the Indus Valley civilization. There was no civilization in the rest of the India that we know of prior to 3,500 years ago. So according to Britishers, they taught us a new set of a history, saying that before 3,500 years, there was nobody living in the land of Bharat. Everyone was living near the Indus or the Sindhu River. So what happened after 3,500 years? That I will describe in a short while. So therefore they said this country should not be known as Bharatvarsh, they should be known as India, named after Indus River. And the idea was so that people can disconnect from the roots, the cultural roots, the scriptural and the spiritual roots, and the historical roots, and now start believing into a new history which was taught to them for more than 150 years. For 150 years, we were taught falsified history. No wonder today everyone challenges even the existence of Lord Ram. The more the educated person, the more foolish he is, thinking that he can challenge the Lord Ram, Lord Krishna existed and whatnot, despite plenty of evidence. We'll come back to it. So let's take a look here. So what is their version of history, which was taught by the Indologists or the Britishers? Is it real? If not, then why did they created a fake history? Why did Britishers taught us a fake history if their history, the version of history was wrong? So first of all, what was their version of history? Let's take a look at it. So if you look at the recent history of India, approximately for 800 plus years, India had been ruled by foreign invaders, primarily Muslims, invaders for close to 600 to 700 approximate years. Among them, Ghazni, of course, was, I would say, atrocious ruler, and so does, in the descendants of his, was Aurangzeb, who primarily destroyed many, many Vedic heritage sites, Krishna Janmabhoomi, Rama Janmabhoomi, and many, many other places, and the mosques were built and whatnot. Muslims, rulers who invaded India, they destroyed Vedic culture by destroying the Vedic structures, but they still could not destroy the Vedic roots, and people continued to practice the Vedic culture. After some time, as you know, Aurangzeb died, and then Marathas came back into the power. Then there was a rule of Maratha literally from Kashmir, Pakistan, back to Kanyakumari, literally for almost 100 plus years. Marathas or the Peshwas were ruling India, which was, everything was going fine until the Britishers landed in Calcutta and they took over the control. How they took over is a different subject matter. I'm not here to teach you history, but to give you some understanding of history. So British gradually defeated Marathas, and the whole of India, including up to Pakistan, all these land came under the control of British. Now they understood, Britishers were not only invading country India, but they were invading different parts of the world like Africa, above the Southeast Asia and so forth. And their whole plan was of colonizing. What is colonizing? Prior, somewhere around 17th century or the early 18th century, industrialization had begun in Europe. And in industrialization, they were making products and they needed raw material, cheap labor, as well as they needed a population to consume that industrial product. Therefore, they started hunting for new markets. And whenever they would, reach out to a new country or new place, they will colonize. Colonize means uh, to color the people of that nation or the country according to their ideology. In other words, colonization means you're converting the people of that land as your slaves for lifelong. It has to be as a labor. That was the whole idea of colonization. Anyways, our modern history book tells us something different, that British rule brought us peace, harmony, and whatnot. That's a different subject matter. So when British started ruling, they recognized and understood, despite above 700 years rule of Muslims, the Vedic culture, the culture of this country could not be destroyed. So they understood that they cannot colonize Bharat or India by their might, because the people of this country are so satisfied, so peaceful, they have their everything, because everyone had a land, everyone had a cow, everyone was self-sustaining. They didn't depend on anything. Everyone lived in their village, everyone grew their own crops, had their own ways of producing cotton, and they would make their own cotton and the jute dress. There was different categories of people in the village who would do the masonry work. Somebody would prepare pots. Everything was there. Within the whole town, all different varieties of people. So everyone was self-sustaining. So how do you colonize this country? Not possible by the strength, because Muslims could not do it. So then they understood their strength lies in their culture, their rich Vedic culture, the spiritual culture. It is their backbone. If we can break their Vedic culture, which was based around Vedic education. We had Vedic education from the beginning of time. We know of Lord Ram going through the culture of a system of Gurukul. Lord Shri Krishna himself went to Gurukul. Just for your information, Europe did not have formal education until 18th century. It was in 1872 that the first school or the university was started back in Europe. While in India, you had a Gurukul system, where Gurukul system had been going on for, I would say, not centuries, for millenniums. Lord Shri Krishna himself went to Sandipani Ashram in a Jain like that. So they decided to demolish Gurukul. And how demolish? They passed a policy: if anyone graduates from Gurukul would not get a job, because now they control the economy. Unless the people of this country go through our education system. So who was the teachers in their education system? They were the pastors or the priests of the church. And their objective was very simple, because they had to colonize it. And one of the easiest means to colonize is to convert the people to your faith. And when people turn to your faith, to your religion, then to control the mass becomes very easy on the name of the God. And like that, conversion of people began. And to do that, they had to call Vedic history as mythology. They had to abolish deity worship, calling it that idol worship. And they had to invent many so-called ills in the society, which were not as widespread as are taught to us in our history books, like the Sati Pratha, the caste system, and so forth. Of course, they were there, but not as prevalent as what is taught to us, that our culture was so bad that it had so many defects. Anyways, you can imagine if somebody have ruled you for 150 plus years, they can change the truth as they want to. So here came Max Muller, the famous Indologist, and they began to Indology is a field of science where you study Sanskrit language. And here he created a team of scholars who began to translate the Sanskrit text into the English text. Now, if you know anything about Sanskrit language is highly contextual. Every word can have minimum 12 meanings. I'll repeat again. Every single word of Sanskrit can have minimum of 12 meanings, and what to speak of having hundreds of meanings. So how do you understand what is the appropriate meaning in this scenario is based on the context. Unless the subject matter is clear, you cannot really decode the meaning of that Sanskrit word. Though now these Britishers who had no idea of Vedic culture, no idea of Vedic science, when they began to translate, it was utter chaos. And by their writing, they published books, they published Mahabharata. This is one of the examples of the Mahabharata, which was published by one of the Indologists from the team of Max Muller on his generation, where they just wrote anything, rudimentary about this great science, a great epic of Mahabharata like that. So this was the whole thing, to dishonor Vedas for political and religious purpose, to bring people under their control so they can colonize and exploit the people of this land. And to accomplish their task, they introduced another theory. Now, how do you change the history? So if you want to change the history, you have to introduce a new history. And that's how they introduce a new history, which is called as Aryan invasion theory. What is this Aryan invasion theory? As you can see on the map, according to them, according to the Britishers, what they created when they created the Aryan invasion theory, they said Aryans were originally Europeans. 3,500 years ago, Europeans invaded the land of India. At that point of time, people lived in North India, and there was nobody living in the South India. So when Europeans invaded this land of India, they came and settled down in North India, and they pushed down the natives of this land to South India. And the people, these invaders who settled down in North India, they later on called themselves as Brahmanas. And these Brahmanas who were invaders coming from Europe, also called themselves as Aryans, were the ones who wrote all this Vedic text. And these Brahmanas who were invaders had pushed the natives of this land to south. They became, or they are called as Dravidians. And this theory have left kind of a, you will say, conflict, ongoing conflict between the North India and South India. Most of the political parties in the South win their vote on this idea of Brahmanas versus Dravidians. They say North Indians are the Brahmanas, and we are South Indians, we are Dravidians, belonging to the race of Dravidians. And this Brahmanas had caused so much massacre and whatnot. They had destroyed our families because they invaded, and their forefathers were Europeans. So according to them, Vedas are 3,500 years old only. Okay. What does this Aryan invasion theory does? It denies the origin of Bharat's predominant culture, but gives the credit of Bharat culture to invaders from Europe. I hope we are going on the same pace. You're able to understand. These are self-explanatory. I have put everything on the slide. So this theory denies the origin of Bharat's predominant culture, and it gives the credit ultimately to the Europeans. If Vedas are accepted as truth, then everything spoken in Bible will be put to question. So what was the need of introducing Aryan invasion theory? A new history, so that Vedas can be called as mythology. And it can be, the Vedas could be discredited by saying that Vedas did not originate in this land. The science or the knowledge of Vedas, which is nothing but a fiction story, were given by our ancestors. We taught you through the medium of these Vedas, we taught you culture. And now today we have invaded you again to teach you the right culture because you have forgotten the culture. Therefore, we are the higher race. That's why in the Second World War, if you know of, Hitler had used the swastika sign, and he had called, I am the Aryan race. So this Aryan invasion theory also, what it did was, Aryan is a state of consciousness, but this theory created the state of consciousness into a race. So the Europeans began to call themselves the original Aryans, because scriptures again and again talk about Aryans to be the most elevated human being. That means in consciousness, spiritually minded. Like Krishna in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about, hey Arjuna, how can you act as a non-Aryan? And then Krishna defines who is an Aryan there. So that's the whole point about it. So let's take a look. If Vedas to be accepted factual, how things given in the Bibles will be put to question. To give an example, according to biblical time frame, the world was created on 23rd October, 6,004 years ago in the month of September, which means according to them, Earth is only 6,000 years ago. However, Veda states the universe was created 155 trillion years ago. So which version is correct? The version of the Bible, the version of the Vedas? However, the anthropological and archaeological studies we have already discussed in one of the previous sessions, they've already found artifacts up to 13.8 billion years old, where they saw the humans, the animals existed, coexisted, even up to 13.8 billion years ago. Not only that, we have the very old civilizations which had been discovered. So actually today, if you see that way, some of the things of Bible could be put to question actually. Not only this, just to give another example, according to Bible, 4,500 years ago, there was a huge flood that actually wiped off the whole life on this planet Earth, which is called as Noah's Ark. Is a very great story in the Bible, which describes or which explains that how 4,500 years ago, the Lord became so angry because there was a rise in the demons in this planet. He wanted to kill everyone. So he decided to flood the whole of earth. And then Lord appeared to his dear son or his devotee by the name of Noah. And he told him that I'm about to kill everyone here. There will be a great flood. I wanted to build an ark. Ark refers to a boat in an old English language. And please take your family on that boat, along with that plants, herbs, and different species of animals. After a week long, when the flood will stop and the whole world would have been destroyed, then I want you to settle down again and start the population of this planet. Does it sound familiar to any story that you have read in Vedic literature? Once upon a time, there was a great flood, and the Lord had appeared in the form of a boat, not in the form of a boat, but yeah, in the form of a boat also. And then the boat was pulled by a fish, and that is called as Matsya Avatar. Yes or no? Where here in the story, Noah, Lord appeared to Noah, and in this story, Vishnu had appeared to King Shantanu. And the Lord had also appeared as Matsya, the fish incarnation, which had actually carried the boat through the flood. Just to give you one of the example. So somebody may ask the question, is there any evidence that the Vedic civilization existed 3,500 years ago? Let me give you some examples of it, so we understand the history properly. There's a description of river Saraswati in the Vedas, time and again you'll find description of Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati. The question comes, according to the archaeological survey, the riverbed of Saraswati dried up 4,000 years ago. Vedas were written 500 years later. 500 years is a huge time. There was no computers, to preserve what happened 500 years ago. The question is, if river did not existed for 500 years, plus the Vedas were written by the invaders from a foreign land, and they came after 500 years of an event that had happened 500 years before, then why would they talk again and again about river Saraswati? Yes or no? They have no knowledge about it because they have not seen river Saraswati. So this is one glitch, very simple glitch that you can say that, how they're fooling around. Second, anthropological findings in the Indus Valley civilization disprove the Aryan invasion theory. For example, Vedic culture did not exist before 3,500 years ago, yes, according to Aryan vision theory. But however, the deities of Lord Shiva, Lord or Mother Durga, Lord Shiva have been discovered belonging to thousands of years old. You just go on Google and type out ancient deities of Lord Shiva. Just 2 years before, millions of years old, not millions, thousands of years old deity was found of Lord Shiva in Siberia, in remote part of Russia. So how could you have deities which are described in Vedic scriptures existing before the Vedic scriptures were written. When Vedic scriptures were written, that's the time Vedic culture was established. Nah? So how come the things which are given in the Vedic scriptures were existing even before Vedic scriptures were spoken about? Next, not only this, there is a great similarity in the culture of Indus Valley civilization, which the archaeologists have discovered, and that of described in the Vedic culture. If this Indus Valley civilization was destroyed 3,500 years ago, or in fact, say it this way, if it existed 5,000 years before, there was no Vedic culture then. Then how did they practice, or their culture had similarity to of that of Vedic culture? Not only that, we have the correct date and times, just like tomorrow is Ram Navami. Lord Ram had appeared almost 11 million years ago. Then how from last 11 years, we have been celebrating Lord Ram appearance day on a particular day? How is it possible? If that was written 3,500 years ago, why would we celebrate a birthday of a fictitious character? Despite being taught to us that Lord Ram, Lord Krishna are all mythological figures, yet there is a huge celebration. Is there anyone else, any other character, a mythical character whose anniversary or birthday is celebrated like this? There's some examples of it. Why don't the Vedas mention a homeland in Europe or else where if they came from there? If the Vedas were written by the invaders from Europe, come on, you could have given some credit to Switzerland. People love visiting Switzerland, Paris, Spain, London, the mother of all colonies, Ireland, the Dutch, the Holland. Not even a single name of any of this comes into our Vedic scriptures, Mahabharata, anywhere. Why? I mean, if you have come from that place, you would like to describe about that place more than to speak about the local place. That's just a common sense. Not only that, we have a hard facts. Mahabharata says Dwarka submerged after Lord Shri Krishna disappeared, and how whole of that Dwarka, submerged Dwarka, had been discovered actually. The marine archaeologists, they discovered it at the bank of Dwarka, at that ocean there. So we all have known of this. And what about the Ram Setu, connecting Rameshwaram with Lanka? Why would the country be named as Bharat after a fictitious character, isn't it? If it was 3,500 years ago, so for 3,500 years, we called a country by a name of a fictitious character. It's just like you change the name of England to Harry Potter land. Isn't it? What's the name of the author of Harry Potter? J.K. Rowling. She's from London. She's from Britain, isn't it? Now, Harry Potter was so famous. Let's change the name of England to Harry Potter land. I mean, is it ever possible? So how is it possible? And the sixth is Sanskrit is mother of all languages. Everyone acknowledges. Not only that, in 1987, Forbes magazine had published an article by the NASA scientists who had said, Sanskrit is the most convenient language for computer software programming. Just like Matra Matra means ma, right? In English, it's called mother. Bhratra is a word in Sanskrit which means bhai. In English, it becomes brother, isn't it? You see so many similarities. The origin of it all is in Sanskrit language. So what was the result of this whole Aryan invasion theory on the origin of Vedic and Vedic culture? First thing, Vedic traditions were presented as historical superstitions. Most Indians today, because of this kind of education, doubt even the existence of Lord Ram and Lord Shri Krishna and consider them as mythology. Aryan, which was a state of consciousness, became a race because of which Hitler abused it, and which was fundamental philosophy behind the Second World War, where he considered native Germans to be Aryans, the higher race, and Jews of the degraded race. And then Britishers abused it when they left India for permanent. They left kind of a conflict between the North India and South India by teaching what is Aryan invasion theory, saying that North Indian means Brahmanas, South Indian means Dravidians, And these Brahmanas had exploited Dravidians, and Brahmanas are nothing but the natives of Europe. And they divided the country like this. Another thing, what this Aryan invasion theory did was a mass scale atheism, because if you call the Vedic scripture to be fiction, mythology, then all the worship of deities, either be Lord Shiva, Durga, Ganesh, Navratri, I believe, are going on. Is it correct? Or about to start. Ganesh Chaturthi, tomorrow Ram Navami, everything becomes a superstition that way. And not only this, our situation is so bad, unless Vedic texts or practices are acknowledged and accepted by the Westerner, we don't accept it. Yoga have become famous today because Westerners accepted it, made it famous, brought it back, patented it in their own country, and brought it back and sold it to us. And we happily accepted it as a commodity from the Westerners. And that is what our pitiable situation. So that was the first part of it. For political reasons, the Vedas were termed as mythology. The father of Indologist, Max Muller, was the brain behind it. And that's what happened. Now, for all of us to think about, it is explained by Max Muller that this all Vedic scriptures were written by cavemen who he was addressing to Vyasadeva. Like you remember, you must have read in your history that man have evolved. Earlier, the man was a caveman, used to live in the forest. They didn't know how to do agriculture. They didn't know how to grow their own crops. They used to hunt animals, eat. So they were the cavemen, and gradually they evolved. And our current history teaches us that we are the most advanced human civilization. Is it so? Please take a look. If that's the case, then what those cavemen had written in the Vedic scripture, what kind of wisdom was given? The very first, Sanskrit, once again. What kind of aborigine, which means uneducated, illiterate, uncultured man, could write a language so perfect in grammar, poetry, and meter that a scholar would need 12 years to master the grammar alone? Now, you don't need even 2 months to understand and learn English from Hindi, isn't it? 12 years required to master the grammar alone. What to speak about different aspects of Sanskrit. Not only that, divisions of time. Now we start our time today from millisecond or maybe less than nanosecond that we know of today. But in scriptures, the division of time is formulated from 1/10,000 of a second up to the complete duration of universal time. There are exact calculation about Brahma's life, Indra's life, even the duration of our universe, when it originated and for how long it will continue. So which aborigine, illiterate, uncultured man could describe things in so details? And of course, don't forget the science of embryology. All right, here. Not only what goes on in the 9 months in the womb, but also what goes into the psychology of the mind of a child in the womb is also described so perfectly. Life species, where the scripture says there are 8.4 million species of life, and modern science believes there are 7 million species. The numbers are gradually increasing as the understanding is increasing. But scripture says 8.4 million species. What about the diverse knowledge? How is it that the Vedas, which are supposed to be the dubious writings of the uncivilized aborigines, contain systematic information on subjects such as music, medicine, which means Ayurveda, music? What an incredible music. I mean, Indians are famous for the music, classical music and the dance, the meter of the harmonium, the sa, re, ga, ma notes. These are the foundation of any music all over the world. The ragas, the classical ragas, so famous, they all are described in Vedic scriptures. How can it be? Even the mridanga that we play, there is a mantra for it. And there's no 1 or 100. There are lakhs of mantras. For every single beat, there is a mantra. I mean, how can somebody compose this kind of mantra unless they were belonging to a highly civilized society? So music, medicine, art, politics, architecture. Look at the architecture of ancient temples. Some of them are only surviving. What about the Sun Temple, right, in Konark? What an incredible structure. They have carved out a stone which tells you what time of the day it is just by the reflection of the sun on that structure. And there is no joint, there are no nails joining the whole structure. They've used a magnet and different kind of technology with which they built the whole 10-story tall granite temple. How is it possible? Warfare and psychology, whatnot. These are some of the photos here. 6, what about the science of atom? How could uncivilized aborigines even know the art of reading, writing, much less describe the atom and atomic energy? This is also described in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. What about the universe? How could they give? There is a whole Vedic cosmology. To give an example, there was a debate for a long, long time in the Western world. Is Earth a flat or spherical? Well, in Vedic text, Earth is called as Bhugol, isn't it? From the time of when Lord Varadev had appeared to rescue planet Earth from the Garbhodak ocean, that time also Earth was represented as Bhugol, which had happened millions of years ago. So in Vedic text, how does this illiterate people knew Earth was not flat, but spherical, which is even debated today by many people on the internet, that Earth cannot be spherical and whatnot. And not only that, what about the orbits of the planet, the size, the eclipses, the size of the universe? How many of you have gone to an astrologer and have got your chart done? They tell you according to the movements of the planet, yes or no? आपके चार्ट में अब शनि की दशा शुरू हो गई है. What is this Shani? That's Saturn. So they know according to the movements of the planet. So science was there. Garga Muni had appeared when Krishna was born, and Garga Muni had given the birth chart of Lord Shri Krishna and who Krishna is. It is described, and same for Lord Ram. So this science was existing then and existing today. And we, through the modern science, are discovering something about the universe today. Not only that, a phenomenal science, a subject matter of soul, and also the absolute truth is described in Vedic scriptures, which is completely unknown to the modern science. And that would be a subject matter for our next session. And is acknowledged by the best of the scientists, Albert Einstein, Robert Oppenheimer, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Aldous Huxley, Hegel, Schweitzer, and whatnot. Many of them have glorified and praised the Vedic wisdom. So, is it something written by a caveman, or is it something could be given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Such an intricate science and the knowledge. How can a man, just a quick thought, we are at the conclusion now. I sometimes wonder, in India, the cuisine is unlimited. If you go to South, you have hundreds of varieties of rice. And you ferment the rice, it becomes dosa, idli, bada, whatnot. You go to Bengal, you have all kinds of whatever grows is fried and eaten there. Every plant, leaf, some vegetable they make out of it, isn't it? If you go to North, you have all kinds of rotis, aloo paratha, gobi paratha, methi paratha. I don't want to tempt you so much. And of course, the sweets. In Delhi, they are very famous sweets. And you go to Gujarat, Rajasthan, and you come to Maharashtra, they eat bada pav. So bada pav is famous here. The point is, think about it. If not anything else, just think about it. I wonder, now, did anyone's mother got into a dream that if I boiled a potato like this and add a spice like this and mix it with besan or something, then this kind of an item would be created? Think about it. There are unlimited amount of varieties. How did we learn about it? Now, you can't say that this is all fluke. This is all random. By experimenting, we created things like that. If that's the case, how many new discoveries have you made if you're a cook? If only discovery you have made is a spoiled food. Is there anyone here who's attending the session that you've created a new item? Probably not a new item. Don't tell me, Proji, in khichdi, I created a new khichdi, meaty khichdi. Now you created meaty khichdi. Meaty khichdi is not something to be eaten. Even the food that we have, from where did we got this knowledge? So is it possible that all this thing, are these learned men fools reading books by uncivilized aborigines? Or Vedas are the books of knowledge originally given by Lord, preserved by being handed down in Vedic tradition of disciplic succession. And the last concluding point, yes, Vedas are difficult to comprehend. That is one of the reasons people today take it as for granted that it has to be mythology. Ravana having 10 heads. Various descriptions which have no experience today makes it difficult for people, common men, to understand. Therefore, if you want to study and understand Veda, it has to be under proper authority for only to understand it. So to conclude, what is the purpose of Veda? Vedaischa sarve aham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. The whole science of Vedas aim or concludes only at one thing: to re-establish our forgotten relationship with the Supreme Lord, which alone can give us the access to the unlimited bliss that arises from a spiritual relationship. And the bliss and the nature of this bliss or the love is it expands. And a person who has access to such spiritual bliss loves every living entity. And that is the nature of spiritual love. And that is what the Vedas want to give it to us by reviving our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So we come to the conclusion of this topic. In this topic, we began yesterday. We talked about commonalities between human and animals. Everyone is searching for happiness. But what is unique for human is ability to inquire, such as, why am I suffering? And there are 7 kinds of suffering that Krishna explained in Bhagavad Gita. Now, after that, we discussed, is accepting scriptures a blind faith? We had discussed 3 reasons within that: science versus spirituality, undefeatable Vedic truth, and Vedic predictions. And then we had discussed 5 FAQs. What are the Vedas? Origin. How did we receive it? What is the division of Vedas? And finally, are the Vedas mythology? Why Vedas were termed as mythology? To dishonor Vedic science for political reason, to colonize this country and the people of this country. And second, it's difficult to understand, it's difficult to comprehend. Therefore, people consider it to be mythology. With that, we come to a conclusion. Thank you all for your patience. Kindly excuse me, I went a little extra time today because the nature of history is such, when you get into it, you get a little bit more involved into it. So fine. Tomorrow, on the occasion of Rama Navami, we'll be speaking on the subject of the greatest lie ever told. That will be topic 3rd. With that, we come to the conclusion for today's discussion. Thank you so much for being there with us today. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for explaining the topic, which was so important through a very
Hare
scientific...
Krishna, Mother Dipasha not audible.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji,
Oh,
are you able
technical
to
team,
hear
can you
me?
fix the sound, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
You're not audible, I'm told.
Hare Krishna. Can
Yeah,
you
very
hear
much.
me?
Yes, audible.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for explaining such an important topic through a very scientific manner, where you explain through the history, and then you also suggested many empirical evidences. And I can see like our audience is very much interested to ask lots of questions. So can we go ahead with the questions?
Yes, we can go one by one from YouTube and back from Zoom, in case if that is like that. And by the way, before I take question, because I delved into a history today, so I wanted to get quick feedback. Was it making sense? Because, I can't see any one of you. I'm kind of talking to a single eye lens. So if I look more closely, I see my own reflection in it. So I really don't have any idea, did it make sense to you? So those of you can switch on their cameras who are there on Zoom. Give me a thumb up if in case it made sense to you. If it didn't make sense, give me a thumb down, okay? So I get to know that you're able to understand something here. Or those of you who are not able to switch on their cameras, if they want to write down on the chat box, either on the Zoom or those who are on the YouTube, so we get to know of it. Okay. Yes, let's go back to the question now.
Okay, Prabhuji. So starting with the Zoom, I can see first hand from Mahesh Jagtapji. So Mahesh Jagtapji, can you unmute yourself?
So for those of you who felt this is an important discussion, my request to all of you, please share this out with as many people. People need to know the right history. Either you talk about the session with others or you share the link of it. So at least today's discussion, at least the history of why Vedas are called as mythology, it should be clear to all. At least they should have an opportunity to think twice about it, not to just take it for granted that Vedic science is all mythology. Either you speak to them or share the link with them, whatever way, but talk to them. People need to know about it. Yes, let's go ahead with the question now.
Maheshji, please.
हरिबल प्रभुजी दंडवत प्रणाम.
Who is speaking?
महेश जगताप प्रभुजी.
Yes, Mahesh. Can we spotlight on those who ever speak? Is that okay? Add. Yes. Yes, Mahesh.
मैं जानना चाहता हूँ अपौरुषेय का मतलब नॉर्मल पर्सन है क्या?
नहीं, पुरुष मतलब जो इस भौतिक दुनिया का, लाइक अ ह्यूमन बीइंग. अपुरुष मीन्स जो इस भौतिक दुनिया का नहीं है. तो भौतिक दुनिया का कौन नहीं है? भगवान.
ओके.
अपौरुषय. तो इसलिए ये ज्ञान किसने दिया है? भगवान ने दिया है.
ओके, थैंक यू प्रभु.
Correct? Yes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Now taking another question from YouTube. So from YouTube, our YouTube participant Shankar Bala Subramanian ji, he's asking a question. Vedas are also called Smriti or Shruti based, which is hearing handed down by word of mouth. Even today across India, we have Ved Pathshala. So why do Indians are so ignorant?
Because nobody's taught about this now. Because every Indian, every parent, even if you are a parent, you would like to send your son or a daughter to CBSE and ICSE school, isn't it? Or the SSC board. Would you have the courage to send your child to Gurukul? ISKCON have plenty of Gurukuls, but except for our own devotees, nobody sent their kids to Gurukul. And of course, there are genuine reasons. They're worried about what would be their future profession, whatnot. So the modern school do not teach any of these things. They teach whatever the Britishers left for us to read, their convoluted and corrupt history. So therefore, it is our responsibility. We have to take this initiative, talk to people, discuss this out. We cannot depend on the government to change the school curriculum. That's not going to be easy. So if you learn of it, go and talk to the people. If you need the slide deck, by the way, this whole slide deck would be available. It's already there posted on the website. And also there is a quiz posted along with it. So after this session, you can go ahead and attempt it so we can announce the winners tomorrow. So please download the presentation, go and talk to your friends and peers, share with them and talk to them. Why not? We have to spread. It's just like word of mouth. Somewhere it has to start. We cannot keep asking the question, why people don't know it. Our question should be, how can we help propagate this message? I guess that's a more constructive question. All right.
So Prabhuji, related to your answer itself, Vishal Chheda ji from YouTube, from Zoom, he has mentioned that can someone who studies in Vedic institution compete with those studying in formal educational settings?
At least in Gurukul that we have, we give them education in a more Vedic tradition up to the 8th and the 9th standard. Of course, they're taught the basic CBSE education also. But after that, we give them exposure to, more of a CBSE curriculum, because after that, if in case a person has to take an employment, employment means has to become an employee, like engineer or something, then he has to go through the engineering field, etc., whatnot. Otherwise, by the time the student is in 8th standard, we generally try to understand the psychophysical nature of the child. And if the child has a more Brahminical ability or talent, but naturally he would prefer to be more entrepreneur rather than become an employee of anyone. And then whatever is the inclination for that child be in the field of engineering, in the field of science, in the field of medicine, is encouraged through the Vedic curriculum and also the modern curriculum. The child gradually has to go through the modern curriculum because we right now cannot change the whole system. But at least if the child from the beginning have got training in the Vedic culture and Vedic roots, then when he goes to the modern education, he knows how to utilize it for sustaining and maintaining life and contributing to the society by upholding one's own values and faith in the Vedic roots and the Vedic culture. So that's very much possible. But for it to begin, the change has to be brought or has to begin within the family first. The parents have to be equally educated about this Vedic science and Vedic culture. Only then the child would take it seriously. Imagine you send your child to a Gurukul where he gets an education according to the Vedic perspective, and then the child comes during summer break at your house, the parents' house, and parents are busy watching a Hollywood and Bollywood movies. What do you expect going to happen to the child? If he stays with the parents, he's gonna get spoiled, fully spoiled, and the spoiled child goes back to the Gurukul. Pata laga, and after 2 months in the Gurukul, you have everyone watching movies, Hollywood and Bollywood movies on the Netflix on the smartphone. What kind of Gurukul would it be? So if you want to have, you have to change yourself also. You have to accept, not forcefully, but take an endeavor to study. And this is not the only course. After this, I'm planning to start a complete Bhagavad Gita study. That most probably going to start from the 8th of May to 26th of May. Again, a complete straight 18-day sessions where we complete the whole study of Bhagavad Gita. Every single chapter of Bhagavad Gita will be discussed in 1 hour session. So there are follow-up discussion, continue with it. And yes, we have to learn. We have to move forward. All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, next I can see raised hand by Mathili Mataji. So Mathili Mataji, you may ask your question. You may unmute. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Is my
Hare.
question is what is the two systems of knowledge?
That is called as, in English, it is called inductive and deductive. Inductive matlab apne bal ke upar, research.
Oh,
And deductive का मतलब होता है deduce, मतलब to receive, मतलब inquire करके. Just like बच्चा माँ से पूछता है, माँ मेरे पिता कौन है, तो वो डिडक्टिव नॉलेज है. इंडक्टिव मतलब जहाँ बच्चा अपनी खुद मेहनत करके खोज करता है कि मेरे पिता कौन है. That's the difference. All right.
thank you,
Hare,
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I cannot see any more questions on the YouTube. I have few more hands on Zoom only.
Fine,
So
go ahead.
next is Raj Lakshmi ji. So Raj Lakshmi ji, you can unmute yourself. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you mentioned about the spiritual master. If we can't find one, or if there is no spiritual master for reading or Bhagavatam, like Bhagavatam or Bhagavata, what is the other option?
See, spiritual master is always there. Okay. Question is, maybe you don't have access to such person right now, but you have access to the Lord. You can pray to the Lord. My dear Lord, please give me the facility. I want to know more about you. That is one thing. Second thing, you can try to read by yourself, but ultimately, unless we have association of spiritually minded people, we cannot really understand the subject. Even if we understand the subject, we cannot practice it. You know, so we need the association. That's very, very important. Even in the business class, you know, they have their own parties of the same kind of business interest. Because the people, you know, you have conferences. Now we have all kinds of conferences for the medical professionals, for the engineers, to bring them together and to inspire about their profession. Sangha is very important. So we need to look out and search out for Sangha. That would always be there. All right.
Prabhuji, I come from a remote place from Kerala. I'm not here. No one knows about this ISKCON or something.
No. आप केरला में कहाँ पर है? केरला में तो हमारे भक्ति विनोद महाराज हैं, बहुत सारे भक्त हैं.
नहीं भक्त है, लेकिन आप कोट्टयम, एर्नाकुलम, in big cities like in Kerala. I am from Pathanamthitta, so here
So you message me your city and contact number. I'll find out somebody local there, and I'll ask somebody from Kerala to connect with you, and they would help you connect with some local forum. There would be something local going on.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And if I tell you, Raj Lakshmi ji, we are in the world time of online education, online Sangha. It doesn't matter you are in Kerala or somebody's in America. Even in this session, you are in Kerala, I'm in Pune, we are still connected. Our education is still going on. Sangha is always there. So in case if there is no association, you can always continue to attend such kind of online programs and remain part. I mean, at least back at Hinjewadi or with this Evolve Pune forum, we have been having since COVID began or COVID lockdown began last year. I believe hardly a day has passed when we had not had a program. For last 1 year, we had a continuous program for adults as well as for kids. At one point of time, we had a program even in English, Hindi, Marathi, parallelly going on, 3 classes. So, and yes, we'll continue that too, Krishna willing now also. English is going on. Hindi is also going on, not every day. Yeah, every day Hindi is also going on. Morning Bhagavatam, Hindi Bhagavatam is going on. English class in the evening is going on. So there are a lot of things are going on. All right.
Okay, thank you.
We'll connect you with one of our, I see Smita is there on the chat. Dipasha, you can connect Raj Lakshmi ji and Smita. Smita is from Kerala. So we have one of our families here. They are from Kerala only. So Mother Dipasha, you can message Mother Dipasha about yourself, and Mother Dipasha would connect you with congregation Smita and Jai. They are from Kerala only. So right here on the forum, we have somebody from Kerala. Right.
Always the internet is not accessible always, no. So yesterday I missed your lesson. So yes, like we have little limitations on the net.
Correct. Something is better than nothing. If not yesterday, it's good we could connect today. That's all right.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Raj Lakshmi ji. Prabhuji, next I can see a hand from Athar. Athar, would you like to ask a question? Can you unmute yourself?
Can you reply to YouTube chat what they're asking? Please go ahead. Yes, Mother Dipasha, go ahead.
Athar? Yeah, Athar ji, please ask your question. Sorry.
Actually, my name is Sachin. My son name is Athar, but Zoom always it says Athar.
Sachin ji, please ask your question. My apologies.
No problem. My apologies because it's my fault. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My question actually, it also came from my son. Most of the time, he's 8 years old, and I confuse, and I also want to tell him what exactly it is. So what he asked, most of the gods are from India. Like the place is Dwarka in India. The Ayodhya is in India, and I'm currently in Netherlands, the Holland,
Okay.
and he's looking a lot of things like miserable things. Poor people in India, why not here? And they don't have a god, then why they are not miserable? They are happy. And one more thing, like which I also feel, in India, people don't care about animals, even they don't care about people itself. But here, when I see, they care
All
about
right.
animals. And
Can I
don't-
go one? Correct.
Sorry.
Can I go one by one to
Yeah.
answer this? First of all, again, everything that you look at or have a question, you have to have an historical understanding. I would like to give you a little brief history of what happened in America. When the Britishers reached America, the Native Americans were called as Red Indians, had a very, very rich culture, very innocent and spiritually minded people. And these Europeans who reached there, they were exploiters, they were business minded, and they usurped the land. This Thanksgiving, what is celebrated in the West primarily, is the day when back almost 150 years ago, they literally wiped off the whole Red Indian race by distributing in New York a cholera-infested blankets to all Red Indians. And within a span of 1 week or 2 weeks, all the Red Indians died. And those who survived, they were forced to give their land. The whole of New York State came into the hands of these European settlers through the means of massacring hundreds and thousands of Red Indians. Then they promised them that we'll give you prosperity and we'll build a city for you. And then they took them out of the city and put them into the forest area, deprived them of all education, modern education, broke their cultural values, made them addicted to alcohol and illicit things and drugs. I had lived in America. I have personally seen with my own eyes. Now, coming back to India, please try to understand this country had been on a foreign rule, under foreign rule for more than 800 to 1,000 years. Now, do you think a foreign rulers had come here as a messiah to bring prosperity to this land or to loot the people of this land? If they came with an idea to loot the people of this land, what do you expect when they go behind? What would be left behind? It's destruction, chaos, poverty, famine, whatnot. This is what remained behind. So one set of Britishers left, another set of Britishers took the rule of the governance, and they continued to loot for 50 years, and the poverty continued to sustain. And the country where you're staying is a country of the looters and the robbers. They went out all over the world, destroyed the lives of hundreds and millions of people by killing them, taking over their property. And now we talk about they are prosperous. You go and meet with them, look at their personal lives. Don't look them outside their houses to call them prosper. When you meet with them and you know their living culture, then you will understand what prosperity is for them. Not even a single person have a stable family life. As much as it is same in America, Europe has a far much worse culture than America in that way. Not even a single person have a stable family life. The mother doesn't trust the father doesn't trust the son doesn't trust the sister, mother. Nobody has any. Is that a prosperity? Yeah. So you always get a reaction. There is always a reaction for it. So don't get befooled by the external parameters. Look within and look without, and you will see they're suffering. Actual prosperity is in loving relationship. Actual prosperity is in trust. And when our country was already looted, of course, it will be in poverty. So that's the first point of a history. Second thing, the child generally asks, because these are the kind of things which are fed to them in the education system, why all the Devatas had to appear in the land of Bharat. See, you have to understand, whenever the yuga changes, Satya Yuga to Treta Yuga to Dwapar Yuga, Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga. When the yuga changes, even the modern science acknowledges there is a huge change in the structure of what you call in the lands of the, or should I say, in the continents. There is a huge movements that take place in the continent. So what do we know of in terms of the distance today was not at Dwapar Yuga. In terms of distance, even Vrindavan and Mathura was very far off. When Akrura from the palace of Mathura went to bring Krishna back to Mathura, from Mathura he is driving on his chariot. It took him whole day to reach Vrindavan. Today from Vrindavan to Mathura you can walk, and within 2 hours, you'll reach Vrindavan. So if we understand in a full context, you will understand then the distances were very different then. So as the age of a man have reduced, in Dwapar Yuga and Satya Yuga, there was age for 1 lakh years. In Treta Yuga, 10,000 years. In Dwapar Yuga, up to 1,000 years. In Kali Yuga, 100 years. The age have reduced to 50, 60, 70 years now. And not only age, the intelligence have reduced, our eyesight have reduced, everything have reduced. So wouldn't the structure and the shapes of the continents would have reduced or shrunken? So that's a concept is also there. That's a point where we see. First thing. Second thing, now, Lord would only appear at the land which is the most pious. Just like when you bring the Lord for worship, don't you make it all neat and clean? If the Lord has chosen this place to appear, which means it is the most pious land. We should be proud that we are born into the place where Lord chose to take birth because it is the most pious land. And the other places are not pious, and their lifestyle gives an evidence. Now, what piety is there? They don't even understand piety. The cows, the mother cow whose milk we drink are being butchered day in and day out, and the flesh of the mother cow is being fed and eaten. Could there be any piety and prosperity? So Lord has certain criteria and parameters. Just like a prime minister of a country has to come to your house, the PMO office will come, members from PMO office and will investigate and make sure everything is according to the protocol, which is up to the standard to receive prime minister. Yes or no? The cleanliness, I'll give you, because in 2012, we had hosted the president of our country. And the evening before, the people from the office of president office came to the temple, and they said, your temple is not clean because we just had a temple inauguration. Whole night, all the brahmacharis were cleaning the whole temple, 6 acres of land. We were cleaning the whole night, so that meets the standard of president. So if the Lord has to appear, wouldn't it require a certain amount of purity? And if the Lord chose Ayodhya, Mathura, Jagannath Puri, other places in this place called India, you should understand that how this land is a land of purity. And we are so fortunate that we have taken birth. But now we counter question, why did we appear here? Forget about us. Why all the Lord had to appear here? We are questioning their appearance only. All right, Sachinji, you have anything else to say to that? Go ahead. Unmute.
Yeah, I understood your point. One small question. If Vedas are there, they don't know Veda, but Indians know because it's in our culture. Then what I see personally, okay, culture-wise is okay, but when they are more caring, what I see here, they are more caring about animals. Yeah, even animals. And in India, even though God is there, why we are not getting intelligence to serve better to human, to animal, to every living being?
You're living in Netherlands right now. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Are you saying all Netherlands, all Dutch people, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
Are you saying they all are vegetarian?
They mostly, but not vegetarian.
Are you sure? Not even a 5% of them are vegetarian.
Yeah.
India has the maximum percentage of vegetarian. In Europe, and particularly Dutch, you will not even find 0.5% population who is vegetarian. How can you say that they're more caring for the animal when they're eating animals? You're contradicting yourself, Sachin.
Yeah. No, when I see living beings, I'm not saying living.
So animals are living or dead?
No, means living means something like, if I will say like cat, dog, like, okay, like I first one example.
I'll tell you.
Okay, one example like dog. So here when I see the dog, it looks like his karma was good. I personally feel his karma was good. That's why he gets got birth here. But if
you come to Sangria Society or the Blue Ray Society, the pet dogs had their karma also good.
Yeah, but why mix up in India?
Oh, this is nothing to do with India. This is all with the wrong education that we have got. And we have not done anything for our country. And we keep on asking why India have not changed.
Yeah.
That's not the case. See, you say the pets, like the dogs and the cats, are loved by people there. Those same cats and dogs are eaten by the Chinese.
Yeah, true.
You know, so it's just a part of it. Just like I'll tell you, I lived in Columbus for many years while I was studying and working there. Right next to my house, there was a church. When I was going to office one day, there was a message written outside the church. Only humans have the right to go back to heaven. Only humans have the right on the kingdom of God. In the evening, I came back. The message was slightly changed. And the message was, only humans and dogs have the right to the kingdom of God. So the local pastor there was also a college student who happened to be my known friend. So I was very intrigued. I said, I need to figure it out why within a day dog got entry in the heaven. Prior to that, dog didn't entry. So I called him up. So he said one of our donor who loves pet, particularly dogs, and Americans love dogs, you know. So when she saw the message, she got so upset. She called me and she said, I will stop my funding to you if you don't give entry to dog into heaven. So what is this? Is it logical? You feel like something, you do it. This whole emotional game. So see, there could be people who show giving care to cats and dogs. My question to you, what are they eating? They're eating the flesh of the cow, the flesh of the bull, the pig, whatnot. They eat everything. Because they love one animal doesn't mean they're animal lovers.
Yeah, it's contradictory. Correct.
In India, again, you have to understand it will take a good amount of time to transform the exploitation that had happened by the foreign rules. And unless we take I would say, within our own hand, the control in our own hand of educating people, helping them understand what was Vedic culture, how Vedic scriptures were factual, people would not understand. They'll continue. What is our education system here? Even education system has not been updated.
True.
The history is completely, what kind of history is taught in school? It praises the Britishers and the Islam, that they brought prosperity to us.
True.
My question to you, simple question. Think about it. If there is a thief, would a thief like to rob from the house of a poor person or a rich person?
Rich person.
If this country had been attacked again and again by the invaders, what it means has to be a rich country, na?
Yeah,
If we were the country of the poor people, uneducated people, why would people invade this country again and again? The whole world is there. I grew up hearing from my mother that, my dear son, you belong to a country which once upon a time was Sone ki chidiya. And I always used to wonder, but people are so poor. And this intrigue made me to ask and inquire about it. And therefore, such kind of inquiries made me to read Bhagavad Gita and find the right kind of association.
Yeah.
So please don't look at that what India does not have today. Understand what India was.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, how can you contribute to bring back that glory, the lost glory, back to this country, back to the people? And I'm not talking on the level of nationalism. The greatest gift of this country for the whole world is a message of peace and love.
Yeah.
The love of God. And if everyone accepts this message, there is no discrimination. Everyone would love the cat, the dog, the cow, and the bull, everyone.
True.
So understand, our real wealth is the wealth of the love of Godhead that we should share. And for that, we need to first study Bhagavad Gita texts like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, apply in our own life, experience the joy, and then share with others.
Yeah.
That would be our contribution for India, helping it regain its lost glory. All right?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, there was one suggestion on YouTube that why don't we start it from the schools level? Like, if we
Yeah,
really
so
want to make any significant change.
I'll give you the content. You can go and start a school and do it. All right. We need more and more teachers. You're welcome to join the team. You can contact me or contact any of the hosts. And if you want to be teacher, we'll train you. We'll give you the content. Hare Krishna. What's next?
Prabhuji, Dr. Sarita ji.
Suggestions are welcome. We need volunteers who are willing to take this opportunity to serve. Don't worry, I have hundreds of advices I keep getting here and there. We need men who are willing to come forward and dedicate. Yes, go ahead. What's next?
Dr. Sarita ji would like to ask a question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I was asked to a question that as tomorrow is Ram Navami, can we worship the goddess Durga and can we read Sundar Kand, as the supreme god is one, that is Krishna, and Ishtadev, and I heard somewhere the Ananya Bhakti, that worship only one god. So should I read like Sapsati part or Sundarkand part?
You can read any part of Ramayana. Sundarkand is definitely one of the, what should I say, the wonderful sections of Ramayana. But I didn't understood what were you talking about Goddess Durga? How Goddess Durga
Durga Sati, I used to read in Navami days, Navami at Durga Ram Navami. But now, as Krishna is my Ishtadev, so can I read that?
There's a lot of background noise, so still didn't got it about Mother Durga, but you can definitely read Sundarkand and chant the holy names of the Lord. And if possible, it will be appropriate to fast until noon, because at noon was the time when Lord Ram appeared. And after noon, you can break your fast and then offer your prayers to the Lord, and then proceed with your household affairs or the professional duties. Okay. I can't hear anything in case if you're saying anything, Dr. says that.
Ananya Bhakti, actually. Ananya Bhakti.
Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti means unalloyed devotion. There is no give and take. I serve the Lord without any return, interest for return. And the concept of Ananya Bhakti is good to be discussed in theory, but to practice it, we need to begin with rules and regulation. Under the guidance of bona fide guru, we need to begin to practice that concept of Ananya Bhakti at a stage called as sadhana bhakti. So where we
Sorry for interrupting. Isn't it the worshipping for one God, Ishtadev, matlab only?
yes. So yes, Ishtadevta, bhakti to Ishtadevta is correct, but Ananya Bhakti develops gradually. You know, Ananya Bhakti means I am not asking anything from the Lord. I'm only asking, my dear Lord, give me service unto you. That is Ananya Bhakti. One concept of Ananya Bhakti you're talking is Ishtadevta. I have one Ishtadevta, fine. But what are you doing with the Ishtadevta? Are you asking Ishtadevta to fulfill my desires? Or actually you're asking for, my dear Lord, give me the opportunity to serve. That is what Ananya Bhakti. Anyways, the concept is, we'll discuss as we proceed in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita talks about this concept. We'll take it then. Fine. So thank you. Thank you. Is there any other question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you. So Prabhuji, we have exhausted all questions from YouTube as well as the Zoom. So with your due permission, we can conclude today's session.
Yeah, it's quite late. It's 8:40. So tomorrow we'll have a session from 7 to 8. Tomorrow I have another engagement right after our session. So we'll not take any questions tomorrow. That's the reason I thought I'll spend some time with all of you today. However, day after tomorrow, whatever questions would be there, we'll cover it that time. So tomorrow's question, Mother Dipashi, you can also request them. They can write it down, save it with themselves, and we can also save it. And on the follow-up session, which will be day after tomorrow, we'll take all those questions. And by the way, I know we are discussing on a subject matter which would have a lot of questions. So if in case there is a need for it, I'm willing, after the end of the 11 sessions, we'll have one session dedicated only for question answers. So whatever we have studied and discussed, whatever doubts are still left over, or whatever the questions we had kept in car park, which could not be addressed, we'll take in that one hour dedicated session for question answer, which I generally do it after this series of discussions. All right. So thank you all. Happy to see Pranabji from Odisha. And okay. Rajalakshmi ji, I just met her, so she's from Kerala. We have Milan Maitriji and our Dr. Sachin. Okay, we have two doctors, Dr. Sachin and Dr. Sarita. Oh, Shweta ji, our neighbor only from Megapolis. Okay. Oh, Sudhir. Okay, nice to see you, Sudhir. And Jay and Nihar is there. Great. Fine, I can't see anyone else, so I really don't know who all are there. But thank you all for joining. Thank you, our host, Mother Dipasha. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the wonderful audience who were there on the YouTube platform as well as on the Zoom platform. So on behalf of our entire Evolve Pune team, we wish in advance Happy Ram Navami. May Lord Ramchandra bless you with the best of the health, which is the foremost requirement in the current time, and happiness. So look forward to have all of you tomorrow's session. Please do register on the registration link, which is at the website link. The reason being is because then you will be able to access all the PPTs, recordings, and also you'll be able to participate in the quiz. So it would be quite an engagement activity that after the session, you are able to attending certain quizzes also. If you are having any notes, if you are having any takeaway lessons. So yesterday, as I have mentioned, that our 10th standard kid Nihar has created very wonderful notes for Prabhuji. So if you are having any particular session notes, or if you are having any takeaway session, or if you can have like the lesson from this particular day or one day quote, so then you can share with our admins of the WhatsApp group. If you want to have any further association, maybe you want to know more about any ongoing program which are related to kids or adults, We have separate classes for Srimad Bhagavatam by Madan Sundar Prabhuji only. So you may connect it with any of our admins, they'll help you.